In the shade of a quiet mountain, there was a temple where the wind moved slower and thoughts seemed to soften. A boy named Sora arrived one afternoon, worn from the inside. He was 17, but his eyes held the weight of someone twice his age. He had tried everything: meditation, fasting, silence, prayer, but nothing had quieted his mind. His thoughts were like wild horses, running all day and all night. Regret, worry, overthinking, self-judgment. He had come to the temple not looking for peace, but looking for escape. The monk who greeted him was old but alert, with eyes that didn't flinch when Sora spoke. "My mind is the enemy," Sora said. "It never stops. It never lets me rest. I just want to be free from it." The monk didn't respond. He simply nodded once and motioned for the boy to follow. They walked in silence, through tall trees and the hum of insects. The monk led Sora to a shallow river, its current soft and steady. He pointed to a spot by the water and said just one thing: "Sit and watch. Don't fight your mind. Just watch it, like you would watch the river." Then he walked away. Sora sat, and for the first time in his life, he didn't try to fix his thoughts. He just observed them. Sora sat by the river for what felt like hours. At first, the noise in his head was unbearable. "You're wasting time. You're broken. You'll never find peace." Each thought screamed louder than the last, and for a while, he believed them, like he always had. But slowly, something changed. As the river flowed beside him, he noticed something. The river never tried to stop the leaves drifting on its surface. It just carried them, without resistance, without judgment. So, Sora did the same. He watched each thought rise in his mind, some painful, some absurd, some old memories, some new fears, and he let them pass like leaves on the water. He didn't chase, he didn't analyze, he didn't fight, and for the first time, his mind didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a sky with clouds passing through. The monk returned just before sunset. "Did your mind stop?" he asked. Sora shook his head. "No, but I didn't try to stop it either." The monk smiled. "Good. The goal is not silence. The goal is understanding." He sat beside Sora and picked up a twig. "Your mind is not your enemy," he said. "It is a storyteller. It tells stories when you're afraid, when you're tired, when you're unsure." He drew a slow circle in the dirt. "The problem is not that your mind speaks. The problem is that you believe everything it says." Sora looked down, silent, but inside, something began to loosen. A war he didn't even realize he had been fighting was beginning to end. If this story speaks to you, consider subscribing and tap the bell so you don't miss what comes next. The next morning, Sora returned to the river before the sun had even risen. He didn't sit like someone trying to escape himself anymore. He sat like someone learning to listen. Thoughts still came. What if I fail again? What if people never understand me? What if I'm not enough? But now, instead of reacting, he noticed a pattern. His mind was always trying to protect him. Every warning, every fearful thought, it was all rooted in survival. His mind wasn't cruel, it was cautious. It had learned, somewhere along the way, that he needed protection. Maybe from past shame, maybe from rejection, maybe from the pain of trying and failing. And now, it whispered warnings like a tired guard at the gate, too afraid to rest. When the monk joined him, Sora spoke first. "My mind is not trying to hurt me," he said. "It's trying to keep me safe." The monk nodded. "Yes, but peace does not come from avoiding danger. It comes from learning which dangers are real and which are just echoes." Sora thought about that. "All this time," he said, "I was trying to shut my mind down, but maybe I needed to sit down and talk to it." The monk smiled. That's the moment the war ends. Not when the noise stops, but when you stop believing you're under attack. Sora closed his eyes, not to run away, but to finally meet the part of himself he had misunderstood for years. If this story speaks to you, consider subscribing and tap the bell so you don't miss what comes next. That evening, the monk gave Sora a small task. Go sit with the thought you fear the most, he said. Not to fix it, not to change it, just sit with it. Sora hesitated. He knew exactly which thought the monk meant. It wasn't the loudest. It wasn't even the most dramatic. It was the quiet one that came late at night, the one he always tried to ignore. Maybe something's wrong with me. That single sentence had followed him for years. It never shouted. It whispered. Just enough to weaken him. Just enough to make him doubt. So that night, he didn't distract himself. He didn't run. He walked into the temple's meditation hall, sat down in the dark, and invited that thought in. And when it came, he didn't flinch. He let it speak. He let it echo. And then he did something he had never done before. He asked it why it was there. And in that silence, he heard what he hadn't expected. Not cruelty, just fear. That thought wasn't an enemy. It was a younger version of him, scared and unheard, trying to protect him from failing, from being judged, from being hurt again. Sora opened his eyes, tears running quietly down his face, not from pain, but from understanding. He wasn't broken. He was just unfinished. And now, he was finally listening to the part of himself he had abandoned. The days passed, and Sora's relationship with his mind began to shift. The thoughts still came, but now, he didn't panic when they arrived. He welcomed them like old travelers. Some were tired, some were angry, some just needed to be seen. He no longer labeled them bad or good. They were just thoughts. He noticed that the less he resisted them, the faster they passed. And in the spaces between them, where silence once felt terrifying, he began to feel something new. Clarity. It didn't arrive like lightning. It came slowly, like fog lifting from the surface of a lake. He started to understand what the monk meant when he said, "Peace doesn't come from controlling the mind. It comes from understanding its nature." One morning, as he walked through the temple garden, the monk asked him, "What's different now?" Sora looked up at the trees, their leaves swaying gently. "I stopped treating my mind like a problem to solve," he said. "Now I treat it like a voice to listen to, but not always obey." The monk smiled. "And what does it say today?" Sora laughed softly. "Today, it's quiet, but not because I forced it to be." He paused. "It's quiet because it trusts me now." If this story speaks to you, consider subscribing and tap the bell so you don't miss what comes next. On his final morning at the temple, Sora sat once more beside the river. The same thoughts still came, some familiar, some new. But now, he met each one with a gentle breath and let it pass. No more judgment, no more war. He had stopped trying to silence the mind and started walking beside it. The monk joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. "You've learned well," he said. Sora smiled. "I haven't learned to control my mind. I've just learned to stop fearing it." The monk handed him a cup. "Then you've learned more than most ever do." They sat quietly, and in that stillness, Sora understood the truth. His mind was never the enemy. It was only afraid, only tired, only echoing old stories it was never asked to tell with kindness. And when he finally chose to listen, not with resistance, but with respect, the noise began to soften, and beneath it, there was space, not silence from escape, but clarity from connection. Have you ever realized your mind wasn't fighting you, but trying to protect you in the only way it knew how? Share your experience in the comments. You might say what someone else needs to hear today,